visuals with him, but he's been at the side of his ailing wife for the last few days. So, thank you.
Yes, I like to point, I like the scribe here to make note that I think 8 minutes to kōrero under the Treaty Waitangi is not on, so it's my little beef. O toku tuinga poto is called Katangi o Mōpapa. Nā taua wā o te orokahanga rā anoa te ao
the creation of the universe and eventually the creation of humankind.
Sorry, I'm nervous. Nā te atua e koha mai ki a tātou, he tuku nā te tonga tuku iho, hei pupuri nā tūpuna mā rātou kai te hiki.
And well-being.
My name is Hera Hineaia Tahau ni Whitiwhiti. Through my ancestry, I'm affiliated to a majority of rivers of Takitimu. I feel utterly sad to talk about the present state of our Mother Earth, Papatūnaki, spiralling down into chaos. I feel I'm in tangi mode all the time now for Papa. I had attended some tōtaki tini hui, one day felt compelled to speak and said the waters are more important than the claims. Silly, I know, but that's what I said at the time. A little bird said, this is not the time, the place, wait for the contemporary claims. So here I am in the year 2021. The world is currently experiencing water crisis. 16 out of 20 mega cities around the world are suffering a water crisis. Ignore that photo, that first photo on the left. Go to the second photo on the right. Here in New Zealand, we are in the deep throes of our own water crisis. Crazy. Australia has suffered major forest burns, and since then our weather patterns have been affected accordingly. David Attenborough, a world-renowned conservationist, stated that the South American burn-offs will impact the world's climate. Here in New Zealand, we are feeling the effects. Now I'm going to talk about empirical experiences. The first one is Ruawharo. Centuries ago, the famous tohunga of Ruawharo, Epinus, ancestor of the Great Migration from Hawaii, and his dog arrived at the river mouth south of Mataruahau. While there, his dog suddenly jumped into the river, excited by the numerous schools of small fish. The barking of the dog's frolicsome behaviour caused the fish to change direction, rapidly change direction here, there and everywhere, under and over in a frenzy. To Ruawharo, the fish species resembled rolling waves. Ruawharo said karakia would set the mauri and named the river Ngāru Roro Boka Tuararo ki Rangatira. To the right bottom, that's the Upoko Roro, our fish species, which no longer exists. And my second empirical experience is Auntie Kate, Keita Kahureramo Hakiwai. Auntie Kate and her whānau lived at Pōtaka when the catastrophic earthquake happened in 1931. One of the surrounding hills there completely fell down. The house that contained their tonga was was destroyed, and their house that they lived in was extensively damaged. Frightened by their after tremors, they decided to move to the banks of Ngāru Roro to live. Auntie Kate went back to Pōtaka daily to milk her koro's cows. That was her daily chore that she used to do. And and returned back to the riverbanks. As the roads were suffered damage and the shop was inaccessible to buy food, so she needed to return to the riverbanks to help her whānau gather food, kaora, inanga, roro, tuna, kōkupu, and kākahi. That's how they survived at that time. I have her tape here, but I've been told I can't play it. It's part of her interview done by Waipa Tirito for the Radio Kahanini. So I was going to play it so you can listen to kōrero. My next empirical experience is Martini Ropia, Uncle Bully, survivor of the Second World War. We celebrated Uncle Bully's birthday at Te Awhana Marae early in the millennium. While there, my husband was invited back to Uncle Bully's homestead. We got there as Muka was loading the truck with fishing gear and went with them to the river. We followed Uncle Bully power walking up and down the river, searching for inanga. I noticed Uncle Bully's demeanour. He was in his element. He was doing what he loves doing, going to the river to gather food, mahinga kai. The inanga should have been running, but there was nothing at all that particular day. Now, Uncle Bully, operated the old Waitā mātauranga Māori, used the old calendar, Māori calendar, to do his daily fishing. My last empirical experience is about my husband. My husband of 30 years at that time fell ill, was diagnosed with a terminal illness, 2012. Eventually he was hospitalised. Our immediate family gathered, we feared the worst, and doctors suggested chemo and radiation therapy. Because his white count multiplied out of control. His children had other ideas. The mātāmua, who returned from America, said no chemo or radiation. We're going to do prayer concession. I'm not going back to America until Dad's cured. One day, the portaki comes in and says, "What's going on? Something should have happened by now because we've been doing prayer concession morning, noon, and night." So she goes home, comes back the next morning. I dreamt God said, "Dad has to be baptised. Dad, you have to be baptised." So she arranged with her devout friends, took her father to Hineaia stream, which is on their which is their whānau homestead. And whānau and friends gathered there for our baptism. A week later, the doctors did another test and found something had happened. His red blood cells had increased out of fashion. Our prayers were answered. Our mātamua returned to America. To this day, my husband has tests during the year, well, once or twice, 4 times at most during the year, because they're interested in him, because he's a bit weird, because he's unique. He's an enigma. His blood count is so high, he produces every 6 weeks 30,000 or 30 million blood cells plasma. That's why they're testing him to see where it is at, right up to this day. It has dropped a little, but that could be due to old age or, we're getting older. Anyway, keep the faith, people. Now, I told this story because this area, Hineaia, is part of the ipu o Te Raira. It is a rongoa rongoa. The stream is a rongoa. He wahi tapu. John Hoover, the matakete, came there and stated, he wahi tapu, the water is so pure. And we said, oh, people drive by and drop all their rubbish over the bridge. And he said, no matter, the water is pure as, well, really pure. It can't get better than that. These empirical experiences show the correlation of time from the first story of Ruawharo, keep the second story of Auntie Kate's, how prolific the fish species was, and to this day, not one of those fish survive. It is officially extinct. From the tia o tawhito ki te o huriri culminating to the various effects caused by human activity. Oh, I've already spoke about that. The species left are struggling to survive. Under the auspices of the Treaty Waitangi, our human rights and the world's Indigenous Rights Accord, including I'll talk to that more. I recommend that the government give full credence to the Treaty of Waitangi in its entirety, giving assured access, support and sanitation for our rivers. In my view, the Treaty Waitangi is a consecrated living document because the missionary were there, God's disciples, mentoring for Māori, because Williams, the priest at the time, was ka tono 13 chiefs to Williams to send to England about their plight because they were concerned about their land and everything else. Since this, so that's what happened, and the result was that the Treaty of Waitangi came about. Well, half my thing is missing here, so was more on Treaty of Waitangi. I will say though, I myself, and I think most Māori, never ever want to be treated as a sleeping partner at all. We're to be a fully participation in that process. Because I think the interpretation by Tauiwi, sorry, I've got to use that word, has been perfunctory, transitory in response to our concerns. So with the new stuff that's happening with Māori wards, I think we will progress, because the Treaty of Waitangi is about parallel development, two equal partners travelling in the same direction, given full equal resources. I've got a little note here, Western paradigm versus tauranga Māori. Well, Western paradigms haven't worked for us, so let's talk further. I spoke to a scientist at the water symposium they had a few years ago, and I was worried about the nutrients. I didn't hear what I needed to hear about the water nutrients. There wasn't a set resolution formed from everyone that appeared at that hui. So this scientist gave me an analogy because I asked him, is it doable to remove nutrients and heavy metals from the rivers and the sea? And he goes, he gave me this analogy. He said, we've got this river back in Canada. Nothing lives below in the river, nothing lives on the side of the river, nothing lives on the top of the river, and nothing above the river. It's all dead. That's his answer he gave to me when I asked him, is it doable? So, and I was alarmed when he told me that, so I brought it up because I asked him this question. They said, oh, not enough time for question, talk to them during the break. Was my question. So when we came back to the main forum, I stood up and said, what are we going to do about the nutrients? And I told him his kore. He's taken it back because he didn't want to be in the limelight for some reason. He just... So that's my concern about Papa. You know, if she's here in human form and her arteries were cut or diminished, what happens to her body? It's like you have to amputate, you know, because it's gone rotten, it's not living, it's tissue. So I'm saying all our tributaries that are part of our river system, waterways, they're needed. God put them there for a reason. And I actually wanted to bring a map. I went to the regional council, had the engineers. They were supposed to give me a map of early river system. Every stream had its Māori names. I've cited that, but I can't find it. So I asked them, can you get me one? And I wanted a current, up-to-date map. And I wanted to overlay the current over the top of the old early map so everyone could see what's missing, what has disappeared. You know, and those names, Matakete named those names, and they're to record events, past events, present events, the current state of that place, and also, those names tell you of a future event that's going to happen there. So we need to record all our Māori names of all our rivers, even the ones that don't exist, because whatever future event that the Matakete said will happen. And it'll be good to know, to be ready. Anyway.
I think we'll just pause there. I'll just...
Ka miti taku kōrero me whakaeri taku kete.
My submission has come to an end, so I will close my submission here. And thank you all. Thank all of us.
Well done.